night, New York's dream almost cracked. New York was not supposed to feel fear on this night. For the first time since 1999, the Knicks were standing on the edge of the NBA Finals, and the city was ready to explode. Madison Square Garden had become a storm. The streets outside were alive, fans were screaming, horns were blaring, and for one rare moment, it felt like every painful year, every broken promise, every failed rebuild, every embarrassing season had finally been washed away by one word: belief. Jalen Brunson had brought New York back. He had taken a franchise that spent decades searching for a real leader and turned it into something dangerous, something proud, something the rest of the NBA could no longer laugh at. The Knicks had just swept the Cleveland Cavaliers. They were rolling. They were confident. They were 4 wins away from doing something an entire generation of Knicks fans had never seen. And then, suddenly, the celebration changed. The news hit like a punch to the chest. Mitchell Robinson had suffered a fractured right pinky finger, and there was no clear timetable for his return. Just like that, New York went from dreaming about a championship parade to asking one terrifying question: can the Knicks survive the finals without the one big man built to protect their paint? Robinson was never the loudest name on the roster. He was not the player taking the final shot. He was not the superstar on every highlight show. But inside the Knicks system, he was a silent weapon. He gave them size, he gave them rebounding, he gave them rim protection, he gave them second chances. And in the NBA Finals, second chances can become the difference between a banner and heartbreak. Now all of that pressure shifts back to Brunson. The same Brunson who has already carried New York through pressure, pain, doubt, and impossible expectations. The same Brunson who has turned every criticism into fuel. The same Brunson who now has to look at his teammates, look at the city, and somehow convince everyone that this dream is not collapsing. So tell me right now, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. If you believe Jalen Brunson can still lead the Knicks to the championship, press 1. If you think New York needs Mitchell Robinson back to finish the job, press 2. And if you love real NBA stories like this, subscribe now, because this finals drama is just getting started. The silent anchor New York cannot afford to lose. Mitchell Robinson is the kind of player casual fans notice only when he is gone. He does not need 20 shots. He does not need the offense built around him. He does not need cameras following every step he takes into the arena. But when the ball comes off the rim, when a guard attacks the paint, when the Knicks need one more stop in a game where every possession feels like life or death, Robinson becomes impossible to ignore. That is why this injury is so dangerous. A fractured pinky might sound small to people who do not understand playoff basketball, but for a center, hands are everything. Catching lobs, fighting for rebounds, absorbing contact, contesting shots, securing the ball in traffic, all of it runs through touch, grip, timing, and pain tolerance. And in the NBA Finals, nobody gets gentle treatment. Every screen is harder, every rebound is a battle, every weakness gets hunted. Robinson gives New York something the box score cannot fully explain. He changes the way opponents drive. He makes players think twice before attacking the rim. He creates extra possessions by crashing the offensive glass. Even when he does not score, he bends the game with his size and physicality. Without him, the Knicks lose their safety net. Suddenly, Karl-Anthony Towns has to carry more defensive weight. Josh Hart and OG Anunoby may have to fight bigger bodies in uncomfortable matchups. The bench has to give minutes it may not be ready to give. And every defensive mistake becomes more expensive because the man who usually cleans it up might be watching from the sideline. That is the hidden fear inside New York right now. This is not just about whether Robinson can tape up a finger and play through pain. This is about whether the Knicks can keep their identity intact if he cannot. Their toughness, their rebounding, their ability to survive ugly possessions, those things are part of who they are. Robinson helped build that identity. And now, with the finals approaching, the Knicks are being forced to answer a brutal question before the ball is even tipped. Are they deep enough, strong enough, and disciplined enough to protect the dream without their most important defensive anchor? Jalen Brunson suddenly has to carry the whole city. Jalen Brunson was already carrying more weight than any point guard in basketball should have to carry. Before Mitchell Robinson's injury, Brunson was the engine, the closer, the emotional pulse, and the face of everything New York believed this team could become. When the Knicks needed a bucket, the ball found him. When the offense got tight, he created space. When the crowd started to panic, he gave Madison Square Garden a reason to roar again. But now the job has changed. Now Brunson is not just being asked to lead an offense, He is being asked to hold together an entire championship dream while one of the team's most important defensive pieces sits in uncertainty. That is a different kind of pressure. That is the pressure that separates great players from legends. Think about what Brunson has already done in this run. He has played huge minutes. He has taken every defensive scheme opponents could throw at him. Wraps, switches, bigger defenders, physical contact, late game pressure. None of it has pushed him out of character. He keeps getting to his spots. He keeps making the right read. He keeps showing New York that leadership is not always about being the loudest voice. Sometimes it is about being the calmest person in the most dangerous moment. And this is the most dangerous moment yet, because if Robinson cannot play, Brunson's margin for error becomes painfully thin. Empty possessions become heavier. Missed shots become louder. Defensive breakdowns become harder to survive. Every game will demand that Brunson control the tempo, manage the emotions of his teammates, and still find enough energy to be the scorer New York needs in the fourth quarter. That is what makes this story so powerful. Brunson is not built like the traditional finals hero. He is not a 7-foot giant. He is not the most athletic player on the floor. He wins with footwork, patience, toughness, timing, and a refusal to bend when the moment gets ugly. And now, with the Knicks front court shaken, the whole basketball world is about to find out whether that kind of greatness can carry a team all the way through June. New York does not need Brunson to be good anymore. New York needs him to be unforgettable. A season built on pain, pressure, and survival. The Knicks did not arrive at the NBA Finals by walking through an easy door. This season was never clean. It was never simple. It was never the kind of perfect championship story where every star stayed healthy, every rotation made sense, and every night felt under control. New York had to fight through chaos long before Mitchell Robinson's pinky became the headline. Robinson's body has been a question all year. The Knicks knew it, the fans knew it, the coaching staff knew it. Every time he landed hard, every time he grabbed at something, every time his name appeared on an injury report, the same fear returned. Because Robinson is valuable, but he has never been fully reliable from a health standpoint. That is the painful truth around his career. And still, New York needed him. They needed his size. They needed his toughness. They needed his willingness to do the dirty work that does not always make the highlight reel. Robinson's game is built on contact, and contact is exactly what makes his situation so fragile. He battles in crowds, he fights through bodies, he reaches for rebounds in traffic. That is how he helps the Knicks win, but it is also how one small injury can suddenly become a finals-level emergency. Brunson has been fighting his own battles too. He has played through heavy minutes, physical defense, ankle scares, and the mental pressure of being the one-man New York trusts when everything breaks down. Every team in the playoffs knows the Knicks run through him. Every opponent enters the game with a plan to slow him down. And still, night after night, he has found a way to answer. That is what defines this Knicks team. They are not perfect. They are not untouched. They are not some smooth machine that never cracks. They are a team built from bruises, adjustments, second chances, and survival. Someone gets hurt, someone else steps forward, a plan breaks, they build another one, the crowd gets nervous, Brunson settles them down. But the finals are different. In the finals, survival is not enough forever. Eventually, pain becomes strategy. Weakness becomes a target. And now the Knicks must prove that everything they survived this season was not just preparation for heartbreak, but preparation for the biggest fight of their lives. The finals matchup just became terrifying. The worst part about Mitchell Robinson's injury is not just that it happened, it is when it happened. The NBA Finals are not a place where weaknesses stay hidden. By this stage, every scouting report is ruthless, every matchup gets studied, every possession becomes a test. If a team lacks size, the opponent attacks the paint. If a team struggles on the glass, the opponent crashes harder. If a defense loses its rim protector, every drive suddenly becomes an invitation. That is why New York has a real problem. Because the Knicks are not preparing for an ordinary front court battle. They could be staring at a finals matchup against a giant who can change the geometry of the court. Whether it is Victor Wembanyama with San Antonio or Chet Holmgren with Oklahoma City, the challenge is brutal. Both bring length, timing, shot blocking, and the kind of size that can make even strong teams look small. Robinson was built for this kind of fight. Not because he could stop everything. Nobody stops those kinds of players completely. But Robinson could make them work. He could absorb contact. He could challenge shots at the rim. He could battle for position, take hard fouls, protect Towns from doing everything alone, and give the Knicks a physical answer when the game slowed down. Without him, every matchup gets more complicated. Karl-Anthony Towns may have to spend more time wrestling in the paint. OG Anunoby may be forced into uncomfortable defensive possessions against bigger bodies. Josh Hart may have to rebound like a power forward. The bench may be asked to survive minutes that could swing the entire series, and Brunson, somehow, still has to generate enough offense to cover all of it. That is the nightmare hidden inside this injury. It does not just remove one player. It changes the job description for everyone else. The Knicks may have to play faster. They may have to go smaller. They may have to pressure the ball harder, double at strange angles, and turn every game into a fight for tempo instead of a fight for size. But that is dangerous because in the finals, one bad adjustment can become one lost game. One lost rebound can become one lost series. And for New York, after waiting since 1999 to get back here, that is the kind of pressure that can shake even the toughest team in basketball. Karl-Anthony Towns is facing the moment that can rewrite his name. Karl-Anthony Towns did not come to New York just to be another talented player with unanswered questions. He came here for nights like this, for pressure like this, for the kind of stage that can either expose a star or transform him forever. And now, because of Mitchell Robinson's injury, Towns is staring directly at the most important challenge of his Knicks career. For years, people have debated him. They have called him gifted, skilled, smooth, and dangerous. But they have also questioned his toughness. They have questioned his consistency. They have questioned whether his game could survive when the lights became too bright and the contact became too violent. Fair or not, that reputation followed him into New York. Now he has a chance to destroy it. If Robinson cannot protect the paint, Towns has to be more than a scorer. He has to rebound through traffic. He has to defend without fouling. He has to communicate. He has to battle bigger bodies, absorb punishment, and still give Brunson the offensive support he needs. He cannot drift. He cannot disappear. He cannot play like a man waiting for the game to come to him. He has to take it. That is what makes this final so personal for Towns. Brunson may be the heartbeat of the Knicks, but Towns could become the difference between a great story and a championship story. If he rises, New York has a real chance to survive Robinson's absence. If he shrinks, the entire structure begins to crack. And the pressure is not only physical, it is emotional. Every rebound he misses will feel bigger. Every foul will feel louder. Every defensive possession against elite size will be judged like a referendum on who he really is. This is what the finals do. They strip away excuses. They reveal truth. But maybe this is exactly what Towns needed. Maybe he needed a moment where there was no hiding, no comfortable role, no safety net behind him. Maybe the injury that terrified New York also opened the door for Towns to finally prove that he is not just skilled enough to play in the finals, but strong enough to shape them. Because if he answers this call, nobody will talk about the old doubts the same way again. The doubters are coming for Brunson. Again, the louder the Knicks get, the louder the doubt becomes. That is how it works in the NBA. The moment a team gets close to the mountaintop, every weakness becomes a national debate. Every flaw becomes a headline. Every old criticism gets pulled back into the light. And for Jalen Brunson, the criticism has always been simple, sharp, and personal. They say he is too small. They say guards his size are not supposed to lead teams to championships. They say the deeper a playoff run goes, the more the game belongs to length, size, wingspan, and physical dominance. They say a player like Brunson can be brilliant for 3 rounds. But eventually, the finals will ask a question his body cannot answer. And now, Mitchell Robinson's injury gives that argument new life, because this was always bigger than Brunson's height. The real concern was whether the Knicks had enough size around him to protect the parts of the game he cannot control. Robinson gave New York that protection. He guarded the rim. He fought on the glass. He gave the Knicks a front court presence that made Brunson's smaller frame less important in the overall structure. Without Robinson, every critic suddenly feels louder. If the Knicks get punished inside, people will blame the roster construction. If New York struggles to rebound, they will say Brunson needed more size around him. If the offense stalls late, they will wonder whether a smaller guard can keep surviving against finals-level physicality. The pressure is coming from every direction, but this is where Brunson becomes dangerous. He has built his entire career on being underestimated. He was not supposed to become this kind of franchise player. He was not supposed to walk into New York and become the answer to decades of frustration. He was not supposed to turn the Knicks into a finals team. Yet, here he is, standing in the exact place people said he could not reach. That is why this moment mattered. If Brunson wins now, with Robinson hurt, with the front court under pressure, with every doubter waiting for him to fail, the conversation changes forever. He would not just be a great Knicks story. He would become proof that leadership, skill, toughness, and poise can still bend the NBA's obsession with size. The world is asking if Brunson is too small for this moment. New York already knows the answer. The locker room has no choice but to believe. At some point, every championship team faces the moment when talent is no longer enough. For the Knicks, that moment is now. Mitchell Robinson's injury does more than change the rotation. It tests the emotional foundation of the locker room. It asks every player a hard question. Are you ready to become more than your normal role? Because in the finals, nobody cares what your job was 2 weeks ago. If the team needs you to rebound, you rebound. If the team needs you to guard bigger players, you fight. If the team needs you to play through fear, you do it. That is where New York's identity has to show itself. Josh Hart cannot just be energy anymore. He has to be a warrior on the glass. OG Anunoby cannot just be a defensive wing. He may have to become a wall against players taller and stronger than him. Towns cannot just be the skilled big man. He has to become the anchor. The bench cannot wait for perfect matchups. It has to survive ugly minutes, protect leads, and avoid mistakes that feed momentum. And Brunson has to make all of them believe. That may be his most important job now. Not the step back jumper, not the floater, not the late clock isolation. Leadership in a moment like this is not about speeches made for cameras. It is about the way a star walks into practice after bad news and acts like the mission has not changed. It is about calm. It is about eye contact. It is about making role players feel bigger than their fear. That is what New York needs from Brunson, because panic is contagious, but so is belief. If Brunson looks shaken, the whole team feels it. If Brunson looks ready, the locker room can breathe. That is the invisible power of a true leader, and this Knicks team has already shown it can survive discomfort. They have won when things got messy. They have adjusted when rotations changed. They have answered doubt before, but the finals are different because the world is watching, and every mistake becomes part of the story. So now the locker room has only one choice. No excuses, no waiting for perfect health, no feeling sorry for themselves. If Robinson comes back, they welcome him like a weapon. If he does not, they fight anyway. That is New York basketball. Mitchell Robinson's return could change everything. The most dangerous word in New York right now is maybe. Maybe Mitchell Robinson can play. Maybe he can tape the finger, tolerate the pain, and give the Knicks the minutes they desperately need. Maybe the medical staff finds a path that lets him return before the series slips away. Maybe the finals are long enough for his body to cooperate, but maybe not. And that uncertainty is torture for a team standing 4 wins from history. If Robinson were officially out, the Knicks could fully adjust. They could commit to small ball, expand Towns' responsibilities, prepare the bench for emergency minutes, and build the entire plan around life without him. But uncertainty creates a different kind of pressure. It keeps everyone waiting. It keeps every strategy half open. It keeps hope alive while fear sits right beside it. Robinson will want to play. That part is not difficult to believe. Players spend their whole lives chasing moments like this. The NBA Finals do not come around often, and for New York, they have not come around since 1999. Nobody wants to be the player stuck watching from the sideline when the city finally reaches the stage it dreamed about for decades. Especially not Robinson, a player whose value has always been tied to sacrifice, physicality, and doing the hard work nobody else wants. But wanting to play is not the same as being ready. A center needs his hands for everything. He has to catch passes in traffic. He has to finish through contact. He has to secure rebounds while bodies crash into him. He has to defend without hesitation. If the finger limits his grip, his timing, or his confidence, then even a return could be complicated. That is the brutal balance the Knicks must face. Bring him back too early, and they risk putting him in a position where he cannot truly help. Wait too long, and the series may already be decided. This is where emotion and medicine collide, where the heart of a player has to be measured against the responsibility of protecting his future. Still, if Robinson returns, even for limited minutes, the entire feeling of the series changes. The Knicks get their rim protector back, Towns gets help, Brunson gets one more safety net, the crowd gets a surge of belief, and New York gets to look at the finals not as a wounded team trying to survive, but as a dangerous team becoming whole again at the perfect time. What this really means for New York, in the end, this story is bigger than one broken finger. It is bigger than one rotation change, one matchup problem, or one terrifying injury update before the NBA Final. What the Knicks are facing now is the kind of test that reveals what a team actually is when the perfect version of the plan disappeared. Every championship run reaches a point where talent meets adversity. For New York, that point arrived at the worst possible time. Mitchell Robinson's injury threatens the team's size, rebounding, rim protection, and defensive balance. It forces Karl-Anthony Towns into a heavier role. It asks Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, and the bench to sacrifice more. And above all, it places Jalen Brunson under the brightest and harshest light of his career. But this is also where legacy is made. Brunson does not need a perfect road to become unforgettable. He needs a hard one. He needs the kind of road that makes people question whether he can survive, then gives him the chance to answer with every possession. That is what New York has always respected most. Not comfort, not excuses, not easy victories, but toughness when the city is holding its breath. Robinson's situation also carries a human lesson. Athletes are often treated like pieces on a board, but behind every injury report is a person who wants to be there for his brothers, his fans, and his city. If he returns, it should be because his body is ready, not because pressure forced the decision. Winning matters, but protecting a player's future matters too. That is the balance great teams must understand. The Knicks can still win, but if they do, it will not be because everything went right. It will be because they stayed together when something went wrong. It will be because Brunson led with calm, Towns answered with strength, Robinson fought with heart, and the entire locker room chose belief over panic. So now I want to hear from you. If you believe the Knicks can still win the championship, even with Robinson hurt, press 1-inch the comments. If you think this injury changes the entire finals, press 2. Like this video, share it with another NBA fan, and subscribe to the channel for more real basketball stories, because New York's biggest test is only beginning.